Hello, friends. How's everyone doing? Hope all is well with you and your family. Hey, as you guys know, we've been covering our investment series, right? Um, we covered flipping properties, wholesale properties, right? Risk of wholesaling, risk of flipping, you know, home renovation, so property management, right? So now, as you know, we've been covering about the property management and make sure you check all the dotted lines. And so let's talk. I know that, you know, we have to check their, if they have any, bankruptcy or their income, all of that, right? So let's talk today um, that you need to be very sure when you renting out the property, what are the main things that you must, these are like a must main things, okay? So, excuse me, if you have pen and paper ready, you can write it, or what you can do, always go back and listen to these videos. There's so much information there, and again, thank you so much for all your subscribers, liking and your comments, wonderful comments. Thank you so much. It really makes my day, as teaching you guys, when you guys put such a wonderful comments, how much you are learning from my videos. And there's nothing like that out there um, without costing you, right? Because these videos are free for you guys. So let's get back into it. So if you have pen paper, you can write it, or you can always go back. Okay, guys. Um, so no matter what, where you get your lease, right? We talk about that. You can go online or you can buy somewhere, right? But it's absolutely, you know, important that it has, these items in that lease, okay? Um, in the lease contracts. Like, you have to be sure that, of course, I've been saying that to you guys over and over, right? Must you should talk to your attorney anytime you're trying to make a investment decision. Talk to your CPA or talk to someone that you trust. Okay. Um, you have to put, let's number one. Okay. Number one is monthly rent due. Okay. Um, that has to be like detailed. You include that in the lease, that's monthly rent, what day monthly rent is due. Okay, and figure out what is your fair um, monthly rent amount for for yourself and for your tenant. Okay, you, of course, you have to consider your mortgage payment, your percentage on top of the all the baselines in that. Okay, number two we should always consider is how tenant is going to pay you every month. Okay, um, they have exact instructions on that, on your lease, how the tenant should pay you, how they pay their rent every month. Okay, and excuse me, if there's like, it's going to be like a mailing, you they are mailing you a check, or you giving them the address, exact address, right, where they can mail you the check. Don't allow them to make up, any excuse why the rent is late because they don't have the right address, or they claiming that they don't have the right address. Okay, so to send you that payment. So you might also want to include like online options to make an easy, as possible for tenant to pay you. Okay. Also, when the rent is due, may exact date that include, clause on exact date for the rent. It cannot, the date should be the same date every month to avoid any confusion on their end and also on your end. Okay. And even if the date falls like even on the weekend or some months, right? But it has to be on that, out from their account that day. Okay. So late fees, you have to, put that, you can put the late fees and penalties. Like if they don't have, um, if they don't pay, on time, what will be the late fee? What will be the penalty? Correct? So that you have to, you know, if you don't have any late fees or penalties for unpaid rent or rent paid, they've been paying it late, it's going to be hard to enforce payment on time. You need to make sure that your late fees and penalties are clearly stated in the lease. Okay. You also have to make sure, security deposit, how much security deposit you required upfront before the tenant moves in, and all the rules that go along with it. This include your right to, go after the security deposit if there are any issues with that tenant or your property, right? And especially if there's a damage to your property, to the extent that repair is required on your end to fix that damage done by your tenant, correct? And non-payment also, non-payment of the rent. So just as you need to detail late fees, penalties, you also need to spell out that what happens if they don't pay you the rent on time, or if they don't pay the rent at all, right? So include your right to file for the eviction within the certain time frame, etc., and let them know upfront that these are the guidelines. Okay, but also include the grace period that if in that time frame they are able to come out, then this is a grace period if applicable. Okay. Above all, you need to protect yourself, guys, right? Nobody else is going to protect you, correct? So your tenant must pay you in full on time every month. If they don't, there will be a consequences such as evictions, starting with eviction notice. Okay. Other thing you have to consider, alterations, right? If a tenant can make any type of alteration to your home and property, for example, if they repaint a room or they replace the floor or they remodel the certain areas, right? Think of like every possible scenario, guys. Find out what is legal, find out what are your rights, correct? That's why, talk to attorney, talk to CPA, and make sure you go through that lease with them, you know. And all that you have to spell out in the lease, guys. For example, if let me give you an example. Uh, if you like, you might allow certain type of, minor remodeling, okay? But you still would like to require the permission. So be sure your tenants know that they must ask you for permission first before they make any changes, including any minor changes. So this should be outlined in the lease. Of course, most rental property owners don't and wouldn't allow most type of remodeling, but you'd be surprised at what happens behind closed doors in between those inspections. Okay, guys. Um, let's talk about appliances. Okay, that's also a major issue because don't forget which appliances are included in the property for use by your tenant. Make sure you note each model, make, color, everything about that appliances. Okay, because it reduces the dispute if it comes up, right? Let me give you an example. So suppose if the tenant moves in, okay, and you supply a washer without a dryer, so the tenant bring their own dryer, okay? But when they move out, they bring their dryer and your washer with them. Without this, information, including in your lease, you could go to court to dispute the matter, trying to, get back your washer or your dryer or collecting on the security deposit. But it become a matter of, words against the tenant. So even in the court. So avoid that situation in any other similar ones too, by listing and detailing each appliances you own, and which ones your tenants are allowed to use. Okay. And how, when they move out, those appliances will be checked if they are still in the working condition, because that's how you gave it to them. Correct? You might even want to like take pictures like that, to put that in your folder, tenants folder, okay, to protect yourself. Another issue I know that so many landlords they go through is the smoking, right? That's a big issue between rental property owners and the tenants, right? Who are smokers. So you need to get very specific about your rules about smoking, about, the smell of the smoke inside the house or around the house or in the garage, something like that. Your tenant could easily find loopholes and you could be left with, the smoking smells on the, even in the walls, because the smell is so strong, and, the smoking stains, right? Lingering smoke scent, correct? And other damage to deal with before, your next tenant who might, don't like the smell of smoke or allergies, right? So be clear and be specific as possible upfront, okay? That they know it clearly, that they cannot go against these are the set rules before they move into your property, okay? Um, so you have to be specific that you have to consider, guys, that will you allow smoking at all, right? Will you allow smoking outside but not inside? Will you allow smoking in the backyard or, outside on the street, not close to the house? Okay. So how many feet from the house, your home, you will allow smoking, if at all? Another thing you have to consider, guys, is the pets, right? Along with smoking, pets can be a major area of contentions also, right? This is another area where you need to be careful and specific about your rules. If you don't allow any pets under any circumstances, then be sure that's clearly spelled out in your lease. Some rental property owners find, that this way is the way to go just to simplify, things. So when they are clearly, it's indicated in your lease, and, go over the lease with them also. That I definitely do that with my clients. Okay. With my tenants, sorry. So, however, there are plenty of like pet owners, they are looking for a place to rent, or some homeowner prefer to open up their base of tenant applicants by allowing a certain type of pets, right? Under certain type of rules, right? You decide that if you allow the pets, if you want to include the pet deposit, if you determine how much this will be or whether it's a refundable, you will also need to include penalties in the least penalties for either property damage done by the tenants, pets, um, tenants who sneak in pets after, right? When you have a strictly no pet policy, correct? Ask your attorney about your rights to seek the like reimbursement if they uh, tenant's pet they cause a damage to your property. Okay. Use of those premises are very important, because you have to carefully spell out the use of premises, because um, that is, if it's a residential property, um, if the property for residential purpose only, correct? If this might seem like a no-brainer, but you know, more and more people are working now from home. We know that, right? Whether operating their own business or telecommuting or freelancing, etc., they have determined precisely what you will and won't allow, you know, running the business inside your property, or having, customer coming in and out from your, house or your property. So you have to, like, for example, let me give you an example, okay? If a tenant can file a former complaint, right? Um, suppose you are providing them like a internet service or a phone service. They file a complaint for their business that if you stipulate in your lease, you will not be guarantee it. Okay. Another thing you have to deal with, that if you're gonna allow fixing cars in the garage, with the stains, the oil stains, or in the driveway, you determine whether you will allow that your tenants, right, to fix any of their vehicles, cars, trucks, RVs, boats, any of their vehicles on the driveway, in the garage, or in the front yard or backyard, or not at all. Whether they are permitted to allow acquaintances to do the same, or if they can, charge, fees for parking. So you need to be very specific, guys, in your lease. You'll be surprised at what, some tenants try to do and ultimately get away with if it's not properly outlined in the lease, in writing. Okay. As I said, you know, sometimes these kind of people who have a habit of making promises, right? Soon as they get the property, soon as they move into it, all promises, all, you know, they made with you and you trusted them, right? Because that's who you are. But you didn't know who they are, right? So they will, if it's not in writing, it's so easy. Promises are just a words, yeah? Because these people, they are in the habit of making promises with everybody. It's not only you. That's how they've been living their life, guys. It's a habit of integrity or not, right? And then habit makes us who we are, correct? Because these kind of people, they are doing this not only to you, they are cheating with everyone else also, not only you, because that's who they are all their life. They don't know anything better. If you think that you have integrity, you have, your words are your bonds. It's those people don't even know the word of integrity, the meaning of integrity. Okay. So that's why I'm saying that over and over, guys. Protect yourself. Okay. So you have to be very specific. You would be surprised, how these kind of people, they get away and they just move on like nothing happened. And here you are totally damaged, property is totally damaged, or, you know, you are loss of money, rent money, damage of your property, right? Time you invested dealing with these kind of people, and figuring out how you're gonna recover this damage now. So make sure you have everything outlined in the lease, guys. Okay. So you have to also like figure out whether you are allow also subletting, like suppose subletting is like, for example, let me give you example of subletting is like Airbnb situation, correct? Airbnb is a subletting on a short or a long term basis, right? So don't, I mean, personally, I don't recommend allowing sublet, since you don't know the new temporary tenant, and you could put yourself or your home, your property, right, in jeopardy, guys. And then also you have to check that your area rules too, right? Some areas, they, like Airbnb, right? It might not be illegal in that area. It's not everywhere, right? Where people or your neighbors, they are complaining, they are watching, there are people going through in and out, from different people going through in and out property, or they are coming in and partying, in the property. And in that area, nobody knows, Airbnb. And they are like, what's going on here in this house? Because everybody watching, we know that. All neighbors watch, right? Because this can also jeopardize their, living too, right? They don't want those kind of people in and out from the property, or partying in the property, or late night parties in the property, right? So your due diligence is to limit the risk and avoid unnecessary troubles, guys. Okay, you you have to make sure that you have a rules for the property, correct? You have a set rules for the property, correct? You you will need general and specific rules. Make sure those tenants that they follow through. And I do that, okay? I would recommend going over the lease with them, okay? You establish the rules honestly, because sometimes people are such a hurry to sign the lease that they don't read or go through the lease, and they're like, oh, I didn't know that. Well, go back and read the lease. Well, I didn't read the lease. So that's what I do, guys. When I do, I make sure that I go through all that these are the set rules. Okay. And if these rules are break, you know, that's it. It'll be done. If you break these rules, this is gonna be consequences. Okay. Either you have to we have to send you the notice, eviction notice, and that's it. The contract is done. Finish. So that way they know upfront that if they break these rules, these gonna be the consequences. Okay. So these specific rules are very important. You have to keep that in mind. If you establish these rules in writing, as I said upfront, and you honestly, thoroughly explain it to them, verbally you explain it to them. So if they like these rules are broken, or if they break these rules, you know, then that's it. It will be a dispute, and then maybe we'll go to the court. So some issues you have to consider, guys, that I urge you to brainstorm other possibilities, you know, like it could be like cleanliness, right? Maintenance of your home, your number of vehicles that are allowed on the property or where they're gonna kept, okay? Or if they are smoking or any kind of drug, if they ever do, right? That's gonna be no. That you have to set the rules where you are comfortable. If you're gonna let them, you know, smoke or into the property or party, that you have to set those rules, guys. Okay, you have to satellite dishes also, right? If they're gonna install the satellite dish um, on the roof, if they're gonna get the permission, or where it's gonna be installed, or if they're gonna change any locks, or they are what you call that, installing, you know, um, window coverings, or taking down any window covering, right? Or again, the late night people coming in and out of the you know property, partying in the property, right? There's a different parties going on in the property, right? Any firework, any firearms are in the house, or any other hazard material in the house, right? So these are the things you definitely have to consider, um, that if you're gonna allow. Another thing you have to keep in mind, guys, that renter insurance, okay? Like, I suggest the lease, you should have a renter insurance, so the tenant have renter insurance. That's that way they cannot legally, sue you if the house burn down, or if they allow, your content, or you cry that you didn't protect their possessions, correct? So consult your attorney to ensure you are legally allowed to require that they have renter insurance. Another point is utilities you have to consider. Your lease needs to contain a clause about utilities, guys. Okay? What utilities, be required to be paid by whom or when. Make sure you make, spell out every single utility that the tenant is required to pay by this date. Why that's important, you're gonna ask, Miss Ruby? Because guys, it's all too common scenario that occurs when tenant moves out, right? In any situation, you want to avoid and you have to protect yourself, right? That they are not leaving you hanging without paying, utility bills, or any utility companies coming after you, you know, for the services for the next tenant, or they won't turn on any utilities till the previous bills are paid that your tenant didn't pay and collection is on the property. Okay. And also your new tenant left, sometimes they are frustrated without utility service because utility company is saying, nope, we're not turning on the utilities, guys, because all this previous bills haven't paid by your tenant, even though it was not your fault, guys. Even as I said, integrity. Not everyone is honest, guys. People take full advantage of other people's naiveness or their honesty or their integrity by just selling you the word clouds, just selling you the clouds in the word, right? It's all just up there. Soon as their, you know, motive is done, complete, whoop, bye. Those clouds are gone. Those promises are also gone with those bills are also gone. And you are just sitting here thinking month after month, year after year, oh my God. So your utility service, you don't want to have this done, or, you know, while you're trying to collect the payment from the previous tenant, and those tenants are nowhere to found. They're already gone to the next one. They're already with their next victim because they're gonna do the same thing to them, what they done to you. This is this is who they are, guys, all their life. So instead of just sitting there figuring out how you're gonna pay all those left out bills, or how and to deal with those utility companies, because now as a homeowner, your name is on that utility company's red flag, correct? Because you are a homeowner, you are the landlord. Also, suppose if another tenant is ready to move in, and then it's not fair for them if the utilities are not turned on, by time, because they are ready to move in. It's frustrating for them, correct? So these are the things, guys. That's why I said have in everything point by point, write that in the lease. Make sure that you are, firm about these points, and you have to also check with your attorney how you can protect yourself if these things occur, you know, how your lease can protect you. And another question thing I would recommend is above ground pools or trampolines, right? You might, because you might not have, thought of this, but what are the rules for above ground pools, you would say? Or trampolines. You're going to say, Miss Ruby, trampolines are it's just in the yard. But these are also, guys, you have to consider that these are hazardous item that could be placed on your property without you knowing. These are legal liabilities waiting to happen. Like if someone injure themselves on a trampoline or drown in the pool, you will be held responsible as a property owner, as a landlord, as a homeowner. Okay, you and then how about parking all those vehicles? That too, you have to consider that in mind. Like parking and vehicles, they can create a whole host of issue. So you will need to spend some time with your attorney developing these rules of your lease, and then all the issues that can come up when you're ready to rent out your property. You have to, we're just talking about vehicles, right? If too many vehicles, cars, trucks, boats, RVs, they are there parked, and they have too many vehicles, then more than your parking space allows, it can cause attention, conflict, complaints by the neighbors, guys. Okay? Neighbors watch. Neighbors know. So your tenant could take up a lot of like street parking or even park in your neighbor's spot. They can call the police or they can file the complaint to, if you have a homeowner association that can even tow the car for the city code enforcement, which will cost you as a homeowner, because it was they came to pick you up from the you as a homeowner from your property. So the bill and the notice will go to you. It will take a time, it will take a money, energy to resolve all these issues. But however, if the rules are spelled out in your lease legally, correct? So fixing these issues or avoiding them altogether will much be smoother, guys. Sometimes non-working vehicles, right? They are just sitting there in your driveway in your home, which is your home, even though tenant is renting it. They have a non-working, your tenant has a non-working vehicles. They are parked in front of the property, blocking. They are, right on the driveway or, in the garage. They're always fixing up and those cars. This can also cause a conflict with the neighbors. And neighbors do complain, guys. Okay. It can be a, flood of phone calls to you, right? Or police or neighborhood complaint or official complaint or to your homeowner association complaint to your city, and then sometime tow the vehicle and the bill will go to you as a homeowner. You need to make sure, guys, you are protected because these things are costly, guys. It's a time consuming, it's such a cost, even though it's not your fault. Okay, you have to protect yourself, you have to protect your right, you have to enforce, that tenants, to fix any situation or any thing, something complaints, if come up to you, you have to give them the notice, you have to let them know that this is the issue and it should not happen again. So you are not, exposed to these fines, right? These costs, these complaints, these reputation or unhappy neighborhood. You don't you don't want to deal with it. Parking space. Okay, your they have to know that how, it needs to include in your lease how many parking space your tenants will have, how many they are allowed to use, right? What space they are allowed to use, and what you'll be do if they need additional parking, right? So in all these parking vehicle related situation, you need to consider whether they'll create issue with your neighborhood, as well as what you are comfortable with. Okay, so even as a landlord, you don't want to create any issue with the neighbors. Am I right? So you want to lessen any risk, guys, reduce any potential stressor, and make sure that you are protected in the lease and when you're going over the lease with your tenant. Okay. All right, guys. I think we covered enough for today. We will be keep going more when I'm gonna let you guys know more things that you should be protecting. Hope all this helped you guys, and we will talk soon. Till then, thank you so much and take care of yourself, guys. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.